Sorry, didn't see you over there. Can you believe this is how people used to get their information? Thankfully, you don't have to. This is actually kind of nostalgic. Thousands of Bolsonaro militants attacked Brazil's presidential offices. They also vandalized the nearby Supreme Court. The events took place a week after Lula da Silva took office. Bolsonaro supporters refused to admit defeat in the last elections and called for a military coup. Bolsonaro, currently in Florida, said that the protests were peaceful and refused to condemn any violence. Hundreds were eventually arrested. Tunisia recorded its lowest electoral turnout in the December presidential elections. The participation rate was just 8.8%. The vote followed the president's suspension of parliament. The opposition, which boycotted the vote, called on the president to leave office immediately. A severe cold wave has impacted many parts of northern India. Water pipes have frozen in some parts of Kashmir, road transportation has been severely impacted, and supply chains have been disrupted. 11 people died from the cold in 2021 and more than 160 in 2020. Around 300 game testers at Microsoft's ZeniMax Studios have voted to form the company's first union in the US. Microsoft, in turn, agreed to recognize the group. ZeniMax owns popular games like Fallout, Doom, and The Elder Scrolls. Its workers are now the largest union-represented group at any game studio in the US. Canada has banned foreigners from buying homes in the country for 2 years. The ban aims to lower prices in one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the world. Students who have been in the country for at least 5 years, refugees, and migrant workers are exempted from the ban. New Zealand passed similar legislation in 2018. Home prices, however, continued to rise. Ukraine managed to strike a gathering of Russian troops on New Year's Eve, causing hundreds of losses in the invading army. Russian conscripts gathered in a school in the Donetsk region before the strike. According to some estimates, around 400 of them have lost their lives. The figure, however, has not been confirmed independently. The Russian Ministry of Defense said that the conscripts had used their mobile phones to call home, allowing the Ukrainians to pinpoint their location. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for a 36-hour ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. The dates coincide with Russian Orthodox Christmas. Ukraine rejected the ceasefire. President Zelensky, in turn, said that the Russians plan to use the ceasefire to move troops and equipment. Spain ended 2022 with a total number of 2.8 million unemployed people. It is the lowest unemployment figure in the country since 2007. Almost 500,000 more people were working last year compared to 2021. Spain still has one of the highest unemployment rates among young people, 32%. Epic Games, the developer and publisher of the popular game Fortnite, will have to pay more than $500 million in fines. Authorities in the US say that the platform paired children with strangers, exposing them to danger. Still, between 2018 and 2019, Epic Games made a profit of $5.5 billion. Anti-government demonstrations have resumed in Peru after a pause of nearly 2 weeks. Protesters used stones and burning tires to block roads in several regions of Peru. The crowds chanted for the removal of the current president, Dina Boluarte. She took office in early December after the Congress, held by the opposition, voted to remove the former president. After she took office, the current president declared a state of emergency and empowered security forces. The measure led to the suspension of certain civil liberties and to the deployment of the military on the streets. The people's favorite, the useless news section. These are news that are not especially important, but I'm still gonna give them to you. A town in England postponed its New Year's fireworks display to not bother a wandering walrus. The walrus was just resting in the town harbor. The popular animal drew large crowds of people that had to be kept away by police and veterinary specialists. An ex-funeral home owner and her mother have been convicted in Colorado after selling body parts for years without any consent. The two dissected over 560 corpses between 2010 and 2018. They sold parts of the corpses to medical training companies. The two were sentenced to 20 and 15 years in jail, respectively. Google is developing an AI model that can decipher difficult to understand handwriting. They are specifically focusing on notes written by hand by doctors. A newly elected Democratic congressman from California announced that he will be sworn into office using a copy of the US Constitution, a photo photo of his late parents, his certificate of citizenship, and a copy of the first edition of the Superman comic book. The comic book appeared in 1939 and features Superman as slightly different than we know him today. Back then, he was the champion of the oppressed. It was during the Second World War that Superman became more similar to a cop. The newly elected congressman is famously a comic book nerd. A grandmother in the UK charged her family for the Christmas dinner to help cover costs. She said that she makes the adults in her family pay up to £15. The children in turn have to pay less. She said the idea came about in 2015 when her husband died and her income was lowered as a result. Overall, the 3-day Christmas meals cost her around £300. Estonia said that it is sending a mobile sauna to the front lines in Ukraine. They hope that this will raise the morale of Ukrainian troops. Ukrainian fighters spend months in the front lines in the cold. The sauna has the capacity to host 400 people over the course of a week. It is also camouflage. During a meeting of the leaders of former Soviet republics, Putin offered his guests, fellow presidents, 8 rings. He kept the 9th ring for himself. The presidents of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan received the ring. Putin is Sauron, confirmed. This has been the news. I hope you enjoyed it. It's not really the freshest news, but still I think it's important that you know about these things, even about the useless news. While you're still watching this, go out and buy a newspaper. God knows the printed press needs it. I will see you next time.